Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's continuing its deadly attacks in Gaza. Despite the U.S.-brokered ceasefire, Al Jazeera is reporting hospitals in Gaza received 13 bodies over the past day that Palestinians say they've seen no real change in their lives since the ceasefire. The Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis is reporting Israel's handed over 30 bodies and remains of slain Palestinians. Hamas has handed over the bodies of 15 Israeli hostages as part of the ceasefire deal. On Wednesday, a funeral was held for 54 unidentified Palestinians returned by Israel. It comes as the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, says the amount of aid currently entering Gaza is a, quote, drop in the ocean of what's urgently needed. Here's Abir Atifa of the World Food Programme.
Since the ceasefire started on the 11th of October, we've now have over 530 trucks into Gaza supporting bakeries, nutrition programs, general food distributions. So far, we've had over 6,700 tons of food. That's enough for close to 500,000 people for 2 weeks. Daily deliveries continue, and they are now averaging around 750 tons. That's much better than what we had before the ceasefire, but it's still well below our target, which is around 2,000 tons every day.
The Palestinian Prisoners Society says Israeli forces have detained 45 people, including a child, in raids since last night in the occupied West Bank. The group describes Israeli forces have vandalized homes and repeatedly assaulted detainees and their relatives. It comes as the UN Human Rights Office in the occupied Palestinian territory is warning about an alarming rise in Israeli settler violence against Palestinians as the olive harvest season gets underway. So far this year, there were over 750 Israeli settler attacks on Palestinians, which is a 13% increase from last year. On Tuesday, a panel of judges from the Philadelphia-based Third Circuit Court of Appeals appeared skeptical of the Trump administration's attempt to rearrest and deport Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil. The Columbia University graduate was the first pro-Palestinian campus protester to be jailed by the Trump administration over his advocacy work. Khalil's lawyers have filed appeals to prevent the Trump administration from detaining him again. Yesterday, Khalil spoke to supporters outside the federal court.
I have to do things like this shows how my case is actually just like a test for everyone's rights here across the country.
The federal government shutdown has entered its 22nd day. Earlier this week, the federal judiciary ran out of funding to support the work of nearly 30,000 staffers and 94 district courts. Some of these courts are furloughing staff for the first time in 30 years. It comes as several states are warning they'll be forced to suspend supplemental nutrition assistance program, that's SNAP benefits, by November 1st if the shutdown continues, impacting an estimated 42 million people nationwide. Meanwhile, at a White House Rose Garden lunch for Republican senators yesterday, President Trump unveiled a new nickname for Russ Vought, the White House budget chief, who has been spearheading cuts to programs nationwide amidst the shutdown.
And I will say this, that we have Darth Vader. You know Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader is a man who, I think he's sitting right. Is that Darth? Stand up, please, Darth Vader. Stand up. Does everybody know? They call him Darth Vader. I call him a fine man. But he's cutting Democrat priorities, and they're never going to get him back.
A January 6th rioter who was pardoned by President Trump has been rearrested for allegedly threatening to assassinate House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. Christopher Moynihan reportedly sent text to an unidentified recipient, including, quote, Hakeem Jeffries makes a speech in a few days in NYC. I cannot allow this terrorist to live. And, quote, I will kill him for the future, unquote. Moynihan is among the 1,500 people who participated in the January 6 riots, who were later granted clemency by Trump when he returned to office. In a highly unusual move, President Trump's demanding the Justice Department pay him about $230 million in compensation for the federal probes against him. Many of the senior DOJ officials who would be needed to approve such a payout previously worked for Trump, including the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, his former private attorney. The White House said they would, quote, follow the guidance of career ethics officials. But Attorney General Pam Bondi fired the agency's top ethics advisor in July. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays is suing Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson for refusing to swear in Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva. In the filing, Mays wrote, quote, constitutional rights cannot be used as a bargaining chip, unquote. Mays is asking the court to force Speaker Johnson to swear in Grijalva or designate someone else to do it. By refusing to seat her, Speaker Johnson is depriving 813,000 residents living in Arizona's 7th District of congressional representation. Grijalva says she believes Speaker Johnson's refusing to swear her in to Congress because she would be the final vote on a discharge petition to release the Epstein files. We'll have more on that after headlines. President Trump's nominee to lead the Office of Special Counsel, Paul Ingrassia, withdrew from consideration Tuesday following widespread backlash over a slew of racist and anti-Semitic texts. Ingrassia texted a group of Republicans that he has a, quote, Nazi streak, adding that the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday should be, quote, tossed into the 7th circle of hell, unquote. After the texts were made public by Politico Monday, several Republican senators say they would not support his nomination, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune. As immigration raids ramp up across the country, ICE agents in Los Angeles shot and wounded 2 people in a botched operation Tuesday. The agents reportedly shot an immigrant from Mexico they were attempting to arrest. A bullet then ricocheted and wounded a U.S. Marshal. The person ICE targeted has been identified as Carlitos Ricardo Parias, who is a popular TikTok streamer with over 100,000 followers and often documents ICE raids. He now faces criminal charges. Here in New York, dozens of federal agents, many of them with face coverings, flooded lower Manhattan Tuesday afternoon as they targeted immigrant street vendors, most of them from Africa. As news spread of the raid, several people took to the streets in protest. An expose by The Washington Post has revealed Secretary of State Marco Rubio agreed to return 9 leaders of the MS-13 gang in U.S. custody to El Salvador in exchange for President Nayib Bukele's government to allow the U.S. deport and detain hundreds of immigrants at the Secot mega-prison complex. Some of the people Rubio promised to return were U.S. government informants who were under the protection of the Justice Department. Bukele's request came amidst mounting reports of secret deals between his government and MS-13. UN experts say U.S. strikes against Venezuela in international waters amount to extrajudicial executions. It comes amidst new reporting that the CIA has played a central role in collecting and sharing the bulk of the intelligence used by the Trump administration to carry out its deadly extrajudicial military strikes in the Caribbean. That's according to reports from The Guardian, which spoke to sources close to the operations, who said the CIA is providing real-time information collected by satellites and signal intercepts to target boats they believe are carrying drugs. CIA agents then make the recommendation to strike the vessels with missiles. The U.S. has blown up at least 7 boats in the region, killing over 24 people, without providing evidence that the vessels are in fact used for drug trafficking. Meanwhile, President Trump's continued his attacks on Colombia and Venezuela. This is Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino.
Colombia must know it can count on the Bolivarian National Armed Forces. The people of Colombia must know that they have on their side moral and physical support and deployment of our force and our territory to defend against all threats that loom over the border.
Russian airstrikes killed 7 people, including 2 children in Ukraine today. It comes as President Trump announced his upcoming summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest has been canceled, telling reporters he did not want to, quote, have a wasted meeting. Both Trump and European leaders are calling on Russia to accept a ceasefire along the current front lines. So far, the Kremlin has rejected those calls. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says it isn't surprising Russia's refused to negotiate.
Instead, Russia is once again doing anything to avoid diplomacy. And as soon as the question of long-range weapons for us, for Ukraine, moved away, Russia almost automatically became less interested in diplomacy.
Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy turned himself in to prison authorities on Tuesday to begin serving a 5-year sentence. Last month, he was found guilty of criminal conspiracy for illegally receiving millions of euros from the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi to fund his 2007 campaign. Sarkozy is the first former French head of state in the modern era to be convicted of a crime. In Colombia, an appeals court has overturned the conviction of former president and U.S. ally Álvaro Uribe for witness tampering and bribery. Uribe had been sentenced to 12 years of house arrest for allegedly bribing imprisoned members of paramilitary groups to retract damaging testimony exposing Uribe's ties to right-wing U.S.-backed paramilitary groups. Uribe ruled Colombia from 2002 to 2010, during which time there were thousands of extrajudicial killings of civilians who were then purposely mislabeled as rebel fighters in what became known as the false positive scandal. We'll talk more about this later in the broadcast. And indigenous leaders from across Latin America have embarked on a flotilla from the banks of the Napo River in Coca, Ecuador, as they sail to Belém, Brazil, for the UN Climate Summit, set to begin next month. Members of the Yacu Amazon flotilla are demanding an end to fossil fuels, protections for indigenous territories and ecosystems from oil, mining, and industrial agriculture, and a ban on fossil fuel extraction in the Amazon rainforest. Democracy Now! Will be in Belém, broadcasting from the COP30. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.